Wong from Wealth Dragons. Welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be talking to you something really fundamentally important in property investment. And this topic is motivated sellers. Now, we've all heard before that you only deal with motivated sellers in this business. So what exactly is a motivated seller? Where do you find them? How do you know when you're dealing with someone who's motivated? You know, in our one-day Property Millionaire Secrets Intensive, we talk a lot in depth about motivated sellers and where to generate leads. So today I'm just going to give you a few tips. In my career as a property investor, I have generated over 50,000 inquiries from my website, Network Property Buyers. And I can't say that every one of those inquiries is from a motivated seller, but through the numbers, I've actually dealt with people who are really motivated to sell. So what exactly is a motivated seller? A motivated seller, by definition, is someone who needs to sell the house quickly. You have to distinguish between the need. In other words, someone has to sell the property, otherwise there would be some consequences that they would not be able to move on with their lives. And that's really different from someone who wants to sell the property. So a motivated seller is someone who's got a situation in which they need to move on. So why is it important to deal with motivated sellers only? So let me give you this clue. A lot of people, when they negotiate property deals or when they go to an estate agent, they're only ever dealing with one thing, and it is the price. Because when you go to an estate agent, you normally just put in an offer and you're hoping that you can actually knock a few £1,000s off the asking price. So you're always talking about the price. But when you're actually dealing with someone who's motivated, you're also going to be dealing with this thing called terms. Terms means it's not just about price, it's other things other than the price itself. For example, someone actually who needs to sell the property might not actually need all the money straight away. So you might actually be able to give them part of the money now and part of the money later. And some of you who've heard about lease options, which is something that we talk about in the Property Millionaire Secrets Intensive, lease options is something that you ideally want to negotiate directly with the sellers. When you're actually going through an agent or a sourcer or a third party, you actually have this thing called an agency problem. Because an agent will have a very different agenda from yours and that of the seller. And that's why the best deals always come directly from dealing directly with motivated sellers, because you can talk about the price as well as the terms. Okay, so where do you find motivated sellers from? Well, there are different ways. In general, you find them and they find you. Now, I want you to think about this. Would it be easier for them to find you rather than for you to go out looking for them? Now, in my experience, I just find that it's much easier for people to actually knock on my door wanting to sell their house. And you know, with my website, Network Property Buyers, when I wake up in the morning, I have like 15 or 20 inquiries from motivated sellers sitting in my mailbox, wanting me to call them back in my own time. And that's what we call pool advertising, because with my pool advertising, people are actually magnetized. They get pulled to my website. They come to me rather than for me to go out looking for them. Of course, there are different ways in which you can find motivated sellers. Some people choose to go to way outside a county court, hoping that they can actually meet some people who are facing repossession. And some people might actually go out and put out leaflets, or they knock on estate agents' doors. These are all fine because you do need multiple pillars. What's the word, please? Multiple pillar. For people to go through the advertising channel to come to you. So you might actually have to go out looking for them, or ideally, the bulk of your advertising should be for people to come to you. So I want to talk about the important part now. How exactly do you know when you're dealing with someone who is highly motivated? Well, first of all, if you actually identify the source of your motivators, of the sellers you're dealing with, did they call you or did you call them? Now, if the motivated sellers have actually come through your website, and your website has got some sort of qualification process, like an inquiry form, with my website, I've got 5 pages of questions that people will need to answer. Of course, not everyone has to go through that sort of depth and length to gather information, because I've been in the business for many years. But for most people, you do need to have some sort of questions that you ask on the website. Now, if a seller will take the time to answer all these questions, there must be some level of motivation there. So, in other words, if you advertise through a website where there is lead qualification involved, you can be guaranteed that although someone might not be as motivated as to give you 30% or above at below the market value, they are motivated somewhat. And it is up to you to talk about the price and the terms. And secondly, what are the reasons? What are the reasons? So let me just write them down. Okay. So the first one is where. Where did they come from? And secondly, what are the reasons? Now, it's funny because I've had sellers coming to me to say, I'm facing repossession, but yet I don't want to listen to your proposal. I don't need to sell. How about if I leave it on the market to see what happens? Listen, if they are facing repossession, they absolutely need to sell. Some people might not actually sense the urgency of it, because, you know, I'm sure you've come across people who sweep things under the carpet, and they think that if they keep those things under the carpet long enough, they will disappear. But of course, it doesn't happen like that, because when the bailiffs knock on the door, you have literally 10 to 15 minutes to get out of the house. So people don't know what they don't know. But if you know that the reasons behind their sale, like behind the mortgage payment, if they're going through a divorce, they're going through some sort of financial difficulties, you know that they are motivated, whether they know it or not. Okay? They are motivated. And thirdly, you want to find out some properties that have been on the market for a long time. So, think about it. If you have got a property on the market for longer than 6 months, and even longer, even if you weren't that motivated to sell straight away, do you think you would be motivated now? Do you think the estate agents are incentivized to market your property when it's been on their books for 6 to 8 months? Of course, the answer is no. And that's why if you look out for some properties that have been on the market for a long time, or even better, if you find that they've been with more than one estate agent, you know that they really are motivated to sell. So you want to get in touch with them. Instead of going through an agent, you might actually want to put a letter, a handwritten letter, addressed to the property, and even do a land registry search to find out who the owner is and put it by hand. You will find that the response rate would go up by 37% just by handwriting on the envelope when you put through the door. Okay, so find out how long the property is on market for. Just look on rightmove.co.uk. You'll find tons of these properties. And fourthly, when you're dealing with the motivated sellers, it might sound obvious, but it really depends whether you've got a sharpened awareness of negotiation or communication. If you can actually just simply hear the tone of the voice, can you sense the urgency? Because communication is not scripted. Things are never black or white. It involves a lot of rapport building. And that's why you can never fully put an offer on a property through a website. Your negotiation begins when you speak to the seller on the phone, or you see them face to face. You can actually hear the tone of the voice. And also, if someone is motivated to sell, you can sense a lot of emotion involved. For example, I was dealing with a lady who really was desperately needing to sell the house very, very quickly because her husband, who was going to be ex-husband, was actually banged up in jail. And he was threatening to come out to kill her when he's shortly going to be released. So she was really scared, she was frightened, and she needed to sell. And you can sense that sort of emotion. So just listen to the tone of the voice. And another tip for you is when you speak to sellers on the phone, just try not to speak too much. Yeah, you need to practice your listening skills because it's much better to be interested than to be interesting. So by being interested, that means you need to listen to what they have to say because you can pick up a lot of clues. And finally, this clue, this tip alone will actually improve your lead conversion. You do so many deals and you will close so many deals just by following this, what I'm just about to tell you. It's called what's in it for me. Yeah, normally we talk about what's in it for them. That's fine because you know that why people need to move on. If you offer them the solutions, that's something for them. But this time, what's in it for you, for me as an investor? Well, if you're going to be offering people a solution, you want to get something in return. If you're helping someone move on quickly, a motivated seller, you want to solve the problems, you want them to do something for you. And this something doesn't have to be big at all. It's just an act. It's just a token of commitment. I'll give you some examples. Once you've actually negotiated a deal and a seller commits to selling over the phone, verbally, what the next step you want to do is to get the seller to either write you an email to confirm that they will accept your offer, or you might actually want them to take some pictures of the property and send them to you. Even if you know inside out what the property looks like, you want them to do something, okay? And the best thing is to get the seller, and I believe this is absolutely essential, because on the Property Millionaire Secrets Intensive, I talk about lockout agreements. So in a nutshell, what's a lockout agreement? It is an agreement, a piece of paper, a legal document that will give you exclusivity to this particular deal for a defined period of time, and typically it's 3 months. So why is it important to have it? Well, simply because you don't want the seller to go somewhere else, because once you've agreed on the deal, you're going to be spending money on the valuation, you're going to have to pay your solicitors for the on-account payment, which all adds up. So it is important that you have some sort of lockout agreement. Now, you know, I've taught thousands of people how to do property deals properly. And when I ask this question, how many people actually use a lockout agreement or a simple purchase option agreement as some sort of exclusivity lockout, I probably get about 5% of people who say yes. Now, it really is important to use the lockout because, one, you get the exclusivity, and secondly, you know that when the exclusivity agreement comes back in the post, if the seller is so motivated that he'll sign the agreement, put in an envelope, and post it, you know this seller is motivated. They're genuine. They want to complete on the deal. They mean business. So, just to recap, the 5 things to determine a motivated seller is: 1, did you contact them or did they contact you? Where did the lead come from? Okay? And secondly, determine the reasons for the sale. Is it repossession? Is it a divorce situation? Is it a probate? So you can actually find out the level of motivation and how long the property has been on the market for. The longer it's been on the market, the more motivated the seller is to sell the property quickly. And listen to the tone of the voice, communication, listen. And finally, what's in it for me? That means you need them to do something for you, in return when you help them with the situations. And to tie everything together, there is one key element that you absolutely need to master, and that's communication. And that's something that we'll be talking about in the next video, and also when you come over to see us at the Property Millionaire Signature Intensive. So I hope you find this useful, and just always remember, deal with motivated sellers only. My name is Vincent Wong from Wild Dragons. I'll see you again soon.